we're gonna. I couldn't even drive yet. I was like, so we're gonna get dropped down there. We're gonna go to a late screening at like 10:30 because that's only when adults would go.
Yeah.
This is on a school night. We're like, we go to 10:30. No one will know. And I'm gonna walk in. And as we're talking to each other, I'm gonna be swinging my car keys around my finger, so people think I'm adult. And I'd already bought the ticket. My mum had already gone and bought the tickets, so I didn't have to go to the counter. I just had the tickets in my pocket. I walk in, swinging the keys on there. Walk up to the usher. Barely look at him, just go, there you go, mate. Back to the conversation. And
Yeah, I'll buy 2 million stocks.
Yeah. So I went and watched I had like a classic sleepover film watching experience.
I thought you had a sleepover recently.
No, unfortunately, those were fun.
It's like, that's called an affair, George.
No, me and a couple of friends, we always try and watch horror films together. We're the group that watched The Exorcist together.
That's so cute.
And we watched a film that I'd never seen before, which was, of course, A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, yeah,
Right?
You said, yeah.
And you've never seen it?
No, I've not seen it.
And
I'm interested to hear.
When I was watching it, I got a sense of all the times this has been watched at like sleepovers throughout the years, because it is fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
And it's jokey and it's hokey and silly.
It probably knew it was making its film for the teenage cinema audience,
Yeah,
and like
totally.
take your date to go see this film.
Yeah. And
Hold me tight, so I'm not scared of Freddy Krueger.
Totally. When I'm watching it, I'm like, I can imagine it packed 80s theatre.
Yes.
People go, oh, because it's gruesome.
let's go see Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
not scared, are you?
Yeah.
This is probably, I bet Americans really annoyed, because in the same way
Yeah.
we get annoyed when Americans make fun of British culture, I'm taking what I know about American 80s culture and trivializing it.
But that's how the characters in the film talk. They're like,
Yes.
come on, man. Let's go upstairs. Let's have a good time.
Yeah.
It's got a very young Johnny Depp in it.
It does,
It's
yeah.
like 19. It's introduced to
How's
Johnny
he doing
Depp.
in that film?
Better than he is now.
Yeah. We should cut that.
No, that's funny. Leave it
Okay,
in.
well, we'll leave it. Yeah, I know it for obviously the Freddy Krueger nightmare scenes. I know it for the face coming through the wallpaper.
Yeah, the plasticines kind of look.
Yeah.
But I bring it up because I just thought, well, when do you, we had such a laugh, me and my mates.
Yeah.
And we just like, it was
Did
silly.
you see it? Sorry, did you see it in a cinema or just at someone's flat?
No, someone's
Yeah.
flat, and it's not scary at all. It's just there's a subplot about there being an alcoholic mother.
Okay.
The main character's mum is alcoholic, and it's just so obviously flagged. Like she's like getting bottles of vodka out from like behind the sofa and out the airing cupboard. It's just silly.
That's another thing I think is lost, is like scary movies used to be really dumb.
Yeah.
I know, like they're less dumb now. They're all realistic found footage, or they're like the sort of Conjuring
Yeah.
verse. I remember like like you said, there would be really stupid characters and dumb things that were fun, almost like a cathartic way to like make fun of the film as you're scared of it.
Yeah.
You get that.
Yeah, I think that's good.
That's
'cause
what I did as a
it
sleepover.
offsets the horror. So,
Yes.
so it's like, hey, what's that noise outside? I better go out wearing only my pajamas.
Yeah.
And like you're watching, you're thinking this is obviously
Because what I used to do as a kid is we would go to
outside
the local
in your pajamas.
Outside of your pajamas. No, you would go to the local Blockbuster video, spend 45 minutes just walking the aisles, going through, and it was such a physical library of videos. And then you'd go to the horror section, and I had no sense of what was good, what was a classic, what was just like recently come out. And I remember watching so many like trashy horror films, like just like old things called like Madhouse, and I think like one of the Amityville horror modern reboots, like bad scary films that were just new. And yeah, they were so bad you could make fun of them, and that was like, even though you were behind a pillow watching them, the fun bit is that like you proved you weren't scared by making fun of it.
But I also think that with Nightmare on Elm Street was intentional. Like that's part of the fun.
Yes.
I don't think it's like was ever meant to be taken like deadly seriously. You know, you mentioned about Blockbuster there. That used to be what I used to love doing.
I
that.
used to
One of my favorite.
and you'd get
things.
snacks as well.
Yeah, and you. I remember seeing like the front cover of like Hellraiser. I remember thinking, what the fuck is
Yeah.
that? What the hell? And and you look at it and you think, and you just became. I think it was so exciting because you're just suddenly aware there's a whole world of like references and things that you have no idea. Your parents know, and everyone knows, but you're like, I don't know anything about this. Why are these must be so important that they've been put here for my consumption?
Yes.
And they're throwing these, and you sometimes like you don't know the difference between this film and that film, but you might mention it to one of your parents.
It was like the ways you were exposed to films It was like there was no like influencer marketing. Like that was the way you saw a library of
That
films.
was the carousel.
There was no like movies on demand. There was no Netflix. That was the carousel.
That was the carousel. And I'd say to my dad or something like, "Oh, what do you think? What about this one?" And he'd be like, "No."
Yeah,
I was like,
and you judge the book by its cover as well.
Or he's like, "Oh, I saw that rubbish," and then and there's no barometer of how to.
I remember when I was a kid, I used to revere films that had the 15 and 18 certificate because they were restricted. And I looked on those like light red and dark red labels. It's like, what is that film? Yeah, it's an 18, and you got to see an 18.
Yeah.
And that whole fun factor of getting into film and watching something you weren't supposed to, and something that was much more risky and shocking. But like, I remember looking at films, but I can't look at that. What's Kill Bill Volume 1?
Yeah.
And seeing like Uma Thurman with the bright yellow. Not just the outfit, but the front, and then like the 18, and thinking, I bet that's really violent. But I had no context for who made Kill Bill, what it was. Not only that I'd fall in love with it later, but just I remember seeing that in a Blockbuster.
Yeah, there's something very sort of alluring about that dark red 18 symbol.
Yes.
And there were things like, I think now it's pretty hard to get an 18 rating.
Yes.
And there are films now that, like The Godfather is an 18. That wouldn't be an 18 now, that'd be a 15.
And the US and the Europe have very much synced up their rating systems now, whereas for a long time in America you could be violent but not show nudity, and in the UK you could show nudity but not be violent, and it was this weird thing where we had different values, and now it's very much similar, like R is R and M is M, etc.
I used one of the fun games to play with a 12A is to know you're allowed one F-bomb in a 12A. Yes. And I always find it interesting to know when films choose to use it. So like I don't know, like Bruce Almighty, when I saw that as a kid, do you remember that? Yes. It was like, over to you, fuckers.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like I remember X-Men First Class. There's a bit where Wolverine says that. Do you remember when
off.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
But then there was the discussion with Philomena, the Steve Coogan film, when they had 2 F-bombs in it, and they had to and they got a higher rating in the States because of it, and they had to go to. Like the MPAA, the Motion Picture Association, I think so, whatever.
Yeah.
And campaign to have the certification dropped, because they were like, the subject matter is still the same, it's very important, and it's just this, and the swearing is actually very integral to these moments in the film. I mean, we have to be frank. It was a Harvey Weinstein campaign. He got Judi Dench to campaign as M from Bond.
Wow.
And it was a success. I believe.
I remember pre-12A in the UK, it was just 12.
Yes,
I know this film comes up every week, but the original Spider-Man had a 12 theatrical release, and I was younger than 12. And I remember my mum wanted to go take me to see it, and I wanted to see it, and she says, you need to behave like a big boy when you go to this film, because otherwise there's a chance. I'd be very surprised if they wouldn't let me in, but there's a chance they might go, you're not safe to see this film, which is kind of crazy. But that was the thing. Did you ever sneak into any films as a teenager?
I remember going to see, well, I remember being sort of like 9, 10 and going to see 12As. And
Well, 12As you were allowed to. It was 12.
No, 12. No, 12. 12A is you can go if you're younger, if you're accompanied by an adult, right? Yes. But I remember going to see 12s without, but that was fine. I do remember when I was 17, I completely over-dramatized this, completely overthought this. I remember wanting to see Drive, right? So I went on a uni open day with a friend of mine. And we went all through London, and we suddenly realised how susceptible we were to tube marketing.
Yeah.
Because we were sat on this tube and we kept seeing the big poster of Ryan Gosling walking in front of the car, right? You've seen Drive, right?
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I want to see that. We said, we want to see that. But we were both 17, right? And newly 17, okay?
Yeah.
And Drive is...
Fresh.
Drive is...
Green.
Green in the gills, or whatever they say.
Yeah.
Drive is an 18, and, fair enough. Yeah, there's moments pretty strong violence.
Yeah.
And we're like, how are we going to do it? So we came up with this whole thing. I was like, right, we're going to
I'm imagining like you and George in the cafe, the roommate switch. You're telling me you want to do the roommate switch? And you're like, montage me fighting and jumping out.
So I was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go.
Here's the plan. And then it's like an Ocean's 11 heist sequence.
I was like, we're gonna. I couldn't even drive yet. I was like, so we're gonna get dropped down there. We're gonna go to a late screening at like 10:30, because that's only when adults would go.
Yeah.
This is on a school night. We go to 10:30. No one will know. And I'm going to walk in. As we're talking to each other, I'm going to be swinging my car keys around my finger, so people think I'm adult. And I'd already bought the ticket. My mum had already gone and bought the tickets, so I didn't have to go to the counter. So I had the tickets in my pocket. I walk in, swinging the keys on there. Walk up to the usher. barely look at him, just go, there you go, mate. Back to the conversation. And
I'll buy 2 million stocks.
Yeah. And so that was the plan. So I walk in.
Sorry, I still do that in M&S when I'm buying wine and I don't have my wallet on me with ID.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't want to like have to go, I don't have my wallet. But I will hold my keys in my hand.
No one's going to
No.
ID you, James. But so I walk in and I do that. I'm swinging the keys. I'm having a conversation. And I can see the usher coming up. And I'm walking. I get about like 10 meters away. 5 meters. 2 meters. And as I'm getting closer, the usher's just like, all right, mate.
Yeah.
I don't even have to do any of it. And I was like, oh, and I really, because I'd built up this ruse. I was like, I thought I was going to have the whole moment of giving the tickets.
Enjoy the film.
He didn't even see the tickets. He just let me go through.
Wow.
And I was like, you are bad at your job.
Yeah.
And then we went to see it and it was great. That was pretty much the only time. But I think when I was younger, maybe I did it like 12/8 and stuff. But that was my lame attempt at sneaking into
It's always
a movie.
like that when you actually give it and then they're like, oh yeah, go ahead. I remember buying alcohol from a Sainsbury's shop the day I turned 18 with my passport ready to be like, today is my birthday. Didn't get ID'd. I bought like 2 bottles of vodka. Like, didn't even ID me. It's the confidence I had.
I am really glad I saw Drive in the cinema though.
Yeah.
Because I also felt like a huge ahead of the curve guy. Because I went
yeah.
back to school and everyone started to get into it when it came out.
Did you not go see it?
Yeah.
Oh, I did.
They were like, we saw Drive on DVD. That was really good. Yeah, I saw it in the cinema. Went late with a friend of mine. Watched the whole head explode. Yep, that was
the big
mad.
one for us was going to see The Hangover in the cinema.
Yep.
And it was like, oh, it's the funniest film I've ever seen.
Yep.
Blah, blah, blah. And then I remember I would have been 14 maybe. And I went to go, we bought a ticket to Cars or Cars 2 or one of those films. And then we just matched up the screenings.
Yeah.
There was a 3 o'clock or whatever. Snuck in to go see Hangover, made it through the whole time. And that film was funnier because I was getting away with the naughty element of going to see it. So that one was successful. And then like, we left, like, that was the funniest film ever. And just like, we can't believe we were like sneaking out the cinema after having watched Hangover. Second time, unsuccessfully. Tried to go see Pineapple Express.
Oh, right.
For
2008, you would have been about 13.
Yes, and it was a 15. And maybe it was an 18, actually.
No, it's not an
15. And went with like, I think it was too many people. The Hangover was like 4 of us.
Yeah.
I think we were like 11 kids going to see Pineapple Express.
Massively draw attention to yourself.
So much attention. We managed to buy the tickets from the machine. You know, where they've got the machines.
Yeah, sure.
Went into the cinema, and then all of a sudden, guy comes in with a torch. Before the film started, like during the trailers, we're like, I need to see ID from everyone. And then one guy was like, we're all 15. We've left our IDs at home. And it was like, no, just straight out.
My counter is like, what ID does a 15-year-old have?
Yeah.
What ID does actually 15-year-olds have? I'd be like, what ID?
Yeah.
You know, I'm 15, but
Perv.
what way right
Yeah.
me?
He's a pedo. Yeah.
So
That's part of
that was the growing up experience.
Yeah.
Them's the days.
Interesting piece of news. There's going to be a Blade Runner 2099 live action series being developed at Amazon with Ridley Scott.
Ridley.
Stop
it.
He's
Stop it,
bringing
Ridley.
back all this stuff.
You mentioned last week about the alien thing. It's like, come on, Ridley. Yeah.
Is that anything you're
Diverse.
interested in?
Not really.
Yeah, I kind of want a sequel from Denis
You got away
Villeneuve
with it.
or-
You got away with it with 2049. I think
More
most
than
people,
got away with
I think
it,
people
you-
thought that was a pretty interesting take. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was good. Well done. Quit while you're ahead.
I'd rather just like take your ideas and make a new IP.
Yeah, make something new. I know it's hard, but just stop.
How rare is it for like Blade Runner as it exists to have two things attached to it, as far as I'm aware? Both are great. And just to not like rinse the blood out the stone till it's dry.
I think also that which is hard to do because you can't get blood out of a stone. I think the more you make it, the more people will go back to Blade Runner thinking it's like this like strange. Basically, the more you make out of Blade Runner, the more you like demystify it. Blade Runner kind of works like an oddity on its own. You know, it didn't make much money. It was this cult film for a long time, and when you watch it, it's very sort of misty and smoky. It's got that saxophone in it.
There's a suspense in its illusion of what it doesn't show you and lets you fill in the imagination.
And that's quite nice. And then, you know, Blade Runner 2049 does something slightly different. It's heavier. It's very industrial. Which is fine and it works, but I don't need to have that story. You know, sometimes things just end. Just let it end. Like the story's over. Go home. It's like I feel like Ferris Bueller. You know,
Like all
Ferris
of
Bueller,
these-
where he's like, go home.
Yeah.
What are you still doing here?
Like all of these, we will reserve our judgment till we see a good trailer.
Exactly.
This next thing, I don't know if you're going to be interested in this, but Indiana Jones 5 has wrapped shooting. 5. The fifth one.
Do you want to know what I think about that?
Yeah. Really just nothing from you. So this one has got Phoebe Waller-Bridge is in it, and she's going to be playing a sort of, I think they're pushing her to be this potential replacement of Indy. And yeah, so she's going to be in it as a companion. Did you know that?
No.
She's in it. I don't know if she's got writing credits on it. It sounds like she would.
Look,
but yeah, James Mangold.
Logan and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I like Indiana Jones.
Me too.
Apart
from the fourth one.
I don't need to see him, come out of retirement and do his old cranky
He was
stuff.
old in the fourth one.
Again, all your news is the same. No, this
Yes.
is critically.
I know.
It's old IP being dusted off and
Mate, that's the industry.
No, that's culture these days.
Yeah.
I know. We've run out of ideas.
It really is. Let Harrison Ford just rest. Poor guy. Stop making him do Han Solo. Stop making him come back as Indy.
I'm not saying it won't be good. It's a bit like the Toy Story 4 thing. It's like, I don't need it.
Yes.
I don't need it. Why is this healthy? Give me something new.
What, is he going to die at the end and have a proper send-off? I like the idea that Indiana Jones is still out there doing his thing. I forget about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the way the third one ended.
Who needs... Also, what Poison Chalice for Phoebe Waller-Bridge to take on an old IP, a 40-plus old IP to what?
Money.
It's like when I said to you about Ghostbusters Afterlife. It's like, who cares? Who cares anymore?
Every week I'm like, shall I watch that? I go, no.
Who's it for?
You know, when I was on a plane, I saw someone on the seats ahead of me watching it, and the little snippets I caught didn't convince me anymore. But I now feel like I've seen it, even though I really haven't.
I've watched the pitch meeting and the honest trailer, and I think I've got the gist.
Yeah.
James?
Yes.
I want to talk to you about movie trailers, okay? Right. Trailers are, a quintessential part of the movie-going experience.
100%.
I actually once got shushed at a cinema for talking during the trailers.
Oh, I
think it's also harsh because, the cinema is also a social space. I know don't talk during the film, but then I brought this up with some people and they're like, yeah, don't talk during the trailers. Oh. Anyway, we've watched a lot of trailers recently, new stuff, right? Reacting to it, and I got me thinking, like, what are actually some of the best trailers that I've seen that almost like transcend the film itself?
They become bigger than anything the film could have been.
Yeah, and you find yourself rewatching the trailer because it gives you, in its own sort of microdose way.
One thing I will give to this like modern Comic-Con superhero genre that we now live in is how much they clearly value the effect and power of a trailer, and they know how to get you nostalgic, excited, and it's such a fun part of being into films is seeing what's coming up and seeing like the approach that someone's going to take. And I love watching trailers so much.
Yeah. Who doesn't love that anticipation kind of feeling? So I wanted to talk about like what are actually, looking back over the past few years, what are our favorite trailers? What are some of the best trailers we've seen? It's hard because you've got so many out there.
So many good ones.
But we've had a little think. I did tell you this ahead of time. We've just done a little recap of the ones we think we're going to talk about. And I think we should talk about the one we've got two different ones and one same one.
Yeah.
So why don't we start with the one we both agree with?
This is like one of the most famous, most effective trailers that have ever happened to me. And it's obviously...
Wait, I'm going to build up even more.
Okay.
There was mad hype for this film.
So this is a year out from the film, over a year out.
Over a year away from the film coming out. There was just incredible anticipation. And then suddenly it was like trailer dropping like 2 days time. And I remember sitting there. I was at uni. I was just waiting up. And it just suddenly came up and it was like, it's available to watch. And I was completely alone in the house.
I couldn't believe I thought it was fake. I had to check on YouTube that it was legit because there were all these videos about what it could be. And all you had at that point were interviews with the director, little articles about approach, whether or not it was actually going to continue on from what we thought.
Yes. This trailer was, of course, for Star Wars Force Awakens.
The first teaser.
Yes.
It's barely a trailer.
That first teaser.
There's more black screen in this trailer than there is actual motion picture. Because it starts with music rising, a black screen, a desert, and just showing Star Wars fans a desert sends your mind asking a million questions. And then it has, which I think is unfortunately one of the it's one of the coolest sides of the reboot, which is a defected stormtrooper, which I think is one of the most interesting. I'm talking like in a vacuum outside of the sequels after that, but like the idea of a defected stormtrooper, I think is such a cool concept. You just see like Finn's sweaty face, and it's just filled with dramatic tension. Straight away, it's like plot is happening. You don't know what it is, but here's some plot, and it's just him breathing heavily, cut straight away, and it just.
Yeah, it's as you said before. It's
I'm exploding with enthusiasm.
It's like a series of gifts.
It's a series of gifts.
They're it's beautiful how little they tell you.
Yeah,
they take these massive things that are massive content. They take these big iconic things,
sounds,
and render them in such a tantalizing way. So you like the desert. A little bit of a stormtrooper.
A robot.
Yeah, a droid that looks a bit like a droid but isn't quite a droid.
An X-Wing going 1,000 miles an hour and you're shooting like along the water with it flipping up the steam of the water.
Stormtroopers that look slightly different with slightly different guns.
Yes.
Going, and the ramps coming down.
An unknown scavenger flipping some noggles on a floating bike and zooming off. And then you get this voiceover from what we now know is Andy Serkis as this mysterious dark figure. There has been an awakening. Have you felt it? Of course, we all felt it.
Yeah, I feel it.
And there's just two words, which is, two sentences, the dark side.
And
then you just get this shot of this mysterious figure. And it's
cloaked
black figure, hooded in a dark wood. And he pulls out a lightsaber that is not like a normal lightsaber. It's got a cross hilt.
But even the way that happens, though, sorry.
And the lightsaber is different. It's familiar, but it's like roaring and spitting and sparking. You can tell this is like a broken bootleg lightsaber.
Yeah. And it cuts off those two bits to the side like a broadsword.
Yes,
like an old-fashioned
medieval knight kind of thing. The dark side, and then it goes to black. And the light. And it has this upside down Dutch angle shot of the Millennium Falcon with the fanfare,
the full Star Wars theme turned up to 11,
blah, blah, blah. And the Millennium Falcon just does this, what I can only describe as a spaceship U-turn, twisting up into the air, banking, and the camera's just ever so slightly not quite catching up to your view. Just as it banks on the sand, these two TIE fighters just go
and then it's boom, Star Wars, we're in.
Christmas. And you're just like, again, I think what the Star Wars sound design is probably the most famous sound design in the world. And it knows it in that trailer because the sounds are watered back. And that's where it gets you.
It's almost a trailer designed by like psychologists to they know how to get to the deep part of it. I remember...
It's 7 TikToks. It's 7 TikTok when that trailer was pretty good. What if we designed a whole app around that entire function?
I remember watching that on my own because I was in my flat and I just couldn't believe it. I was so excited by it. And then I was just waiting to like share it with someone. And then I heard my flatmate come in and like I heard him come upstairs and I opened my room door and I was like, mate! And he was on the phone and I was like, oh, and I had to like hold it. Hang up! And anyway, he was there just like having a chatting for ages and I was like, is he talking about it? Has he seen it? Anyway, then he hung up. And he came in and he was like, yeah, what's up? I was like, the trailer's out. And he was like, okay, so we watched it. And when it got to that bit you're talking about with the Millennium Falcon and it soars, and then it goes, dun, Star Wars, we both just threw our hands up in the air. We were like, yeah!
Even just rewatching it now, my leg is like shaking and I'm like ready to just go mental. But like I remember like hanging out with you for the first time. We were in a play together and it was just like if you were speaking to anyone who liked films at that point, you just were quoting that. And we would essentially like mouth the whole thing. Like we'd be like the dark side. And the light.
So that was, it was over a year away. That came out in November 2014.
And you had a whole year to just fill in the gaps with talk about like the facial expression and who is that? Do you think that's so-and-so's daughter? Who's that guy? Is he the son of it? And you just had no idea.
Whatever happened with that trilogy, whatever your opinion is, like I will always have a very, very cherished fondness for that period of time because there had been no Star Wars for ages. Like 10 years.
Starved.
And it was coming back and you felt like it was in good hands. And that trailer made you put you at ease. You're like, this looks
These
great.
people get it. They know what Star Wars is.
And just that excitement. I remember spending like the whole of 2015 talking to people going like, this is going to be the biggest. I'm really looking forward to it. It's gonna be, and it
I've
felt
never
like
been so
it felt like the
excited
second coming. It felt like it was coming back. And I loved The Force Awakens. I really still do. And I think it just delivers. It's such good fun.
I actually want to rewatch it on a sick day. I think we'd love it. And I also want to shout out the actual trailer that followed, which was also brilliant, which showed us so much more. But it had like one of my favorite lines from Han Solo, which is like, the Force, the Jedi, it's true.
Yeah.
All of it. It's such a wonderful line to come from Han Solo in the same room where he said, I don't believe in this hokey pokey stuff.
And that's the follow-up trailer where it shows like the charred mask of Darth Vader, doesn't it? And it ends with him going,
Nothing will stand
Chewie.
in our way.
Is that when he ends up with him going, Chewie?
I will finish
Yeah, what I
what you started.
Yeah. Oh, and then he
so
goes,
And you hear the Empire Strikes Back love theme. It's so good.
Well, you've just heard us nerd out completely about that trailer.
Force Awakens.
So that's
teaser.
something we had in common, something we bonded about. But,
Yes.
but we also, respectively, have different trailers that really stick
Yes.
with us. Would you want to do yours first?
Sure. So we've mentioned this film and this trailer in previous episodes, and I think that's what inspired this segment.
Yeah.
But the trailer for the film, The Social Network, directed by David Fincher, is I think when I think about it, it's probably one of my favorite films, and it's one of my favorite trailers. The film is good for so many ways, and it still hangs up, and I could go on to a whole nother video about why I think it deserves a very different but similar sequel. But the trailer to this film is so good. We just watched it, and I forgot that it has this chilling, reduced piano creep Radiohead theme.
Yes.
And the first half of this trailer is just really close-up screenshots of what Facebook used to look like in its first origins, of people just posting, putting pictures of their baby, pictures of their friends' night out, commenting.
Pictures that are so zoomed in on the screen that you can see the individual pixels of the screen, and people typing their status.
And it's actually
updating their
capturing like
relationships.
people sharing for the first time, and it's like, feel like crap today, or like just woke up.
Yeah.
And it starts with this like chilling child choir of like, I don't care if it hurts, I want to have control, I want a perfect body. And it's like poetry, and it just rings so true. And you've got this magnetic voiceover from Jesse Eisenberg as Mark Zuckerberg, just talking about like, I want to be part of the clubs, I want to create an exclusive experience. Why? Because they're fun. And you can tell like the cogs turning in his head of what he's missing out on and what he wants to essentially nullify, which is like the importance of social status not being accessible to everyone. And it just builds into
I want to take
this.
the entire college experience and put it online.
Yeah, it's like
And meanwhile, the choir is still
the
building
choir
behind.
raises, and you can see all these scenes that just escalate off things smashing, people having sex.
They're
fights,
saying they stole
arguments.
the Facebook.
It's like if you'd been the inventors of Facebook, you would have invented Facebook. And there's people like smashing things, like fighting, like things falling in, burning, parties. You know what's cool? $1 billion. I'm CEO, bitch. And you just are, if first time seeing that trailer, oh my God, what is the story of how this thing
And
got
then it
made?
builds just the tagline, which is, you don't get to 500 million friends without making a few enemies.
Yeah.
Boom.
It's like that site got 2,200 views in a day. 22,000. Your best friend is suing you for $600 million. It's just like, there's so many great scenes which I find myself watching on YouTube, which is like, you have part of my attention. You have the minimum amount.
The
rest of my attention is at the offices of Facebook, where my colleagues are doing things that neither you or your client are intellectually or mentally capable of doing.
It's
so good.
It's a fantastic film. I agree. It's one of my favorites. Great trailer.
So good. Performances from like young Andrew Garfield, young Jesse Eisenberg, young Armie Hammer. Really, really good.
Yeah.
And that trailer, I think you get chills coming out of it. And that film is more and more interesting as time goes on because of what Facebook has gone on to become. And I think because of how interestingly they portray the character of Mark Wahlberg in that. I said this just earlier, but I want a sequel. I want it to not be the same film, but I want that approach and that attention to detail of what Facebook was, and the fact that it was made as started out as this comparison site at Harvard. These kids who have got no idea the power of what they've created and the influence that has had, I think would make for another fantastic film, and I want Sorkin attached. And it can't go wrong with that film.
And as a trailer, it just does that perfect thing of, I want to see this. I want to see this, and I want to see it right now.
I want to know the story. I want to know the characters. And just like the scene of Andrew Garfield storming out of that boardroom, walking towards, and he just grabs his laptop and smashes it on the ground. You're just there like, what happened? How is that? How has it got to that? Such a cool trailer.
Great trailer, great film. I agree. Okay, so I'll tell you about mine.
Yeah.
And because I just showed it to you,
Yeah.
and you're probably thinking, oh, I hadn't thought about this film.
I hadn't.
Yeah. This film was about 10 years old, and I remember seeing the trailer for it in like summer 2011. And it wasn't coming out for like...
It was delayed.
It was
for a while,
delayed,
wasn't it?
yeah. So it was meant to come out at Christmas. It didn't actually come out till a year later. And this is the trailer for Baz Luhrmann's The Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
What I just can't describe necessarily how it breaks down, but it's just got this intoxicating, heady mix. In the trailer, it captures exactly what makes Gatsby an interesting story, in that it's this hedonistic, just alluring tale. So you think, obviously, 1920s New York, but it begins with Jay-Z and Kanye.
Yeah.
From Watch
The soundtrack was one of the most hyped elements of it.
Absolutely.
That it was going to be a Baz Luhrmann treatment.
Yeah, with
right?
Baz Luhrmann, you're going to have great music and great flair. And then it cuts to New York, 1922, and you're on the bridge with the speeding motor car.
And the setting is, I'd like to describe it as almost on the verge of dream logic.
Yes.
The way in which the film
Yes.
shoots and portrays its setting and its characters. And,
Yes.
and even the dialogue in certain sequences, it doesn't... You're not watching this like you would a Forster adaptation.
It's almost flipped in that the Great Gatsby, the setting and the period detail and everything, that is the main character, and all the other stuff is actually like secondary.
Yes.
And you get that in the trailer, and you get the shots of like Times Square in the 20s, and it's just roaring and booming.
Like the golden car like beaming down.
And he's the
Roaring 20s.
This voiceover of Tobey Maguire, isn't it? Caraway being like, the restlessness approached.
Yeah.
Hysteria. Hi, nice to meet you. And Elizabeth.
Gatsby knew.
Yeah. And that's a young Elizabeth Debicki as Jordan in it. And then it cuts to Mr. Gatsby would like to speak with you. And then it cuts
Gatsby?
to quiet. As
What Gatsby?
Yeah, Mr. Gatsby doesn't exist. Fireworks.
I heard he's a myth.
And then goes quiet. And then it's like cuts to the sound of rain. And Daisy's waiting there for him. And you just see this shot of Leonardo DiCaprio soaked in rain.
Yeah.
And then
Old
you
sport.
hear this dong, dong, dong,
Yeah.
these chords, which is actually of a Jack White cover of a U2 song
Yes,
called Love is
yeah.
Blindness. And it's like, dong, dong, I'm certainly glad to see you again. Dong, dong, I'm certainly glad to see you as well.
It had amazing music. There's an amazing song from Florence and the Machine of, I think it was like Green Light in My Eyes or Green Piano.
Right.
That's really, really good music. I mean, I don't dislike this film as much as a lot of people do. I know
Sure.
a lot of people find this film very irritating.
Yes.
People who really love the book. I've studied this book twice academically, but not read it. Right?
Well, that's just on this point. We were of the generation that had studied it, and then the film like came out immediately after we had studied
Yes.
it, right? So it was we were ripe to watch it.
So I, can get why people are irritated by it, but I always enjoyed its artistic flair more than I was faithful to the core elements of the plot.
Yeah.
And we were just, there's a flash of that scene in that trailer, which is the hot summer's day lock-in that plays out like a stage play.
Yeah.
And they're just amazing performances from Joel Edgerton, Leo DiCaprio.
Joel Edgerton is
I
such a
said to you
guy,
when we were
yeah.
watching it, Carey Mulligan is such a versatile actor,
Yeah.
and she's good in everything, and also in this.
Do you know what? I hate not to disrespect, but it's like, actually, if you look at that scene, it's like Leonardo DiCaprio, Carey Mulligan, Joel Edgerton, Elizabeth Debicki, and Tobey Maguire.
Yes, I mean Tobey Maguire's not bad. He works for me as an effective narrator, but there's something in a lot of Tobey Maguire films where he is a little bit wet.
Yeah, completely.
And like again in Spider-Man No Way Home, I love him for being core to the old Peter Parker, but he is a little bit moist. And I think it works as a good contrast to Gatsby in this, because he is much of a passive observer of the happenings of the film. But yeah, it is funny how he has less to do in the great acting moments of that film.
I didn't mind actually the Great Gatsby, Baz Luhrmann's well. I loved the Baz Luhrmann treatment he gave to the real flair of the 20s. I think he really got like not
Gold
only
and the green,
not just the roaring goldness, but also like the tragic like downside of it as well. Like the real ash heaps you get when they drive out of town. With the eyes of Dr. Eckelberg, on the billboard. There's something very writ large and wonderful and wondrous and kind of monstrous about the whole thing. But I think there are scenes of intimacy between like Leo DiCaprio and of Gatsby and Daisy rather, that because there's so much green screen in it,
so much
that it just feels very flat. There's one like moonlit scene. I'm just like, this is on a soundstage in like Australia, isn't it?
Tobey Maguire and in the rain, like looking
Yeah.
up. But like, as much as I agree, I reckon the visual effects don't age very well if I was to sit down and watch it right now. As much as I agree it is a larger-than-life depiction, I think, considering the writing and the dialogue, to have shot that or tried to make that film in a more grounded, less Baz Luhrmann-esque way, I think the dialogue would have gone slightly, it would have fallen flat and not hit in the same way. I like that it's dream logic, and it is about like the obsessive compulsions of a man determined to go and find something and do something. To shoot it in that way, in like, as I said before, almost a dreamlike state, it lends itself more to that dialogue.
It's not dry.
No.
A period, you always look at like a period adaptation.
It's a feast of the eyes.
You always think, is that going to be very dry? It's absolutely not dry. And that's one of the best things about it. I mean, great book. And the trailer just...
Thanks, George. Great book.
If you hadn't heard, I mean, I say it's really good. It's a
5 stars from Pulp Kitchen.
It's not just the Gatsby, it's the Great Gatsby.
Yeah, it's great for a reason.
And the trailer, just to get back to it, is... just full of that, it's the attitude of having modern music in it. It's almost melodramatic, and intoxicating as a result.
It's a melodramatic retelling of that story, and that's what it's trying to be.
But that, talking about how we studied it as an academic text, I remember the first time I watched that trailer, I'd put it on the whiteboard, the interactive whiteboard in my English class, being like, they've just released a trailer for the book we've been studying. Should we watch it?
Guys,
And
I found something relating to our studies.
I remember my English teacher going, oh, that looks very good, actually. I think I might see that. Anyway, although quite depressingly, I think I watched that film on an iPad. I'm ashamed to say.
I think I watched it on a MacBook.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Just as Baz would have intended.
There you go. I mean, if you don't even watch the films again, watch the trailers.
Go and watch the teaser trailer for The Force Awakens, the Social Network trailer, and the trailer for The Great Gatsby.
We should do this again. I want to do...
We should do this again sometime.
Yeah.
I love this.
We should do another review of trailers because I think that'll be fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Pulp Kitchen. Don't forget that we post a new episode of this show every single Wednesday, as well as extra content and reviews throughout the week.
Don't forget to also follow us on TikTok and Instagram for plenty more stuff.
If you're listening, please give this show a review, and if you're watching, please give it a like and subscribe. It really does make a difference. See you next week.